Hey guys, today we're going to talk about another pretty basic leatherworking process that you're going to need to attach just about any one piece of leather to another, hole punching. There's lots of different ways to attach one piece of leather to another, but for most of the really secure ones, you're going to have to put some kind of hole in the leather. There's lots of different tools you can use to accomplish this, but the most common one is what we call a rotary hole puncher. So you can buy these at Tandy or Weaver or just about any hardware store even. But what it has is several different sizes of hole punches on one drum so that you can spin it and change the size of the hole that you want for each punch. Now, rotary hole punchers come in all sorts of different makes and models. This is probably one of the bottom tier ones. They cost about 12 to 20 bucks. But I've had pretty good luck with the ones I've gotten from Tandy. I've gotten similar ones in the same price point from hardware stores and that kind of stuff. And they work for a little while, but we let people from our workshops use them. I've never used leatherworking tools before, and they're kind of hard on them. And these have proven not to hold up quite as long as the ones that we've gotten from Tandy. You can get them in a higher price point range as well to give you additional features, like these are out of cast metal. So they're solid here rather than the folded metal like the bottom price point ones, where this is kind of hollow on the inside. You can also make a little bit more investment and buy some that have a mechanism in them that take about 70% of the hand strength required out of the equation. So if you're going to be punching a lot of holes, this might be something you want to invest in to kind of hold off your carpal tunnel for a little while. On the more basic side, you can always go with the traditional just striking punch style. These are kind of handy to have around if you're going to be trying to get to holes in strange places, like you need to set something on the center of a breastplate, because you've only got so much throat in these rotary hole punchers, so you can only go in about 1.5 inches or 1 3/4 inches from the edge of a piece of leather, whereas these you can float them around anywhere on the workpiece, hit it with a hammer. If you look close, you'll see mine are a little mushroomed out because I end up using a steel hammer most of the time, because I'm kind of the mentality when it gets mushroomed out, I hit it on a grinder or sand off that mushroom top. But the more professional and classy way would be to use something that you don't damage your tools with, like a resin or a rawhide hammer. You can get striking punches that are also adjustable in a sense as well, like this model where the tip will unscrew and you can change out the size for if you're switching from an eyelet size to a rivet size or what have you. It's threaded, so you just screw it on to a different millimeter size. But if you're going to be doing a lot of holes for the same sizes, having these nice, easy one size strikers are pretty convenient, and they're pretty inexpensive. So just so you can see a little bit of the difference of these in action, on the rotary hole punchers, usually the second to smallest size is 1/8, which is what you would be normally using for a rivet shaft. So you just compress the leather in between the two sides of this kind of scissoring action, and it leaves you a pretty easy hole. As you get bigger, like the second to largest setting size is for eyelets, for example, as it gets larger, it's a little harder to get it through the leather. It takes a little more hand strength. I like to punch and then give it a twist, because if there's any kind of leftover leather burr on there, it can hold the chad up there in the hole, whereas the twisting action kind of lets you saw through it. If you're getting to the point where it's getting particularly hard to go through the leather, then like I was saying, those extra assist hole punches will actually help you a lot too. So you can see how that's quite a bit harder to force through there, whereas if I use the springers here, it just kind of goes right through 2 layers at the same time without any kind of hassle or really even feeling like it's much added strength. The downside of the springers is they will run you anywhere between like $50 and $70, whereas like I was saying before, your price range for the most inexpensive ones of these models is 12 to 20, and then the cast ones run up to about 30 to 40. The strikers, the same general idea. You're just going to apply enough force that the punch is going to go through the leather. It's pretty easy to actually force it through there, even with the larger diameter holes. Just that impact really kind of drives through without any trouble, even if you're using these larger bit sizes. but you'll definitely want something protective underneath it. You know, I've got a cutting table here, and I don't like to mar it up any more than I have to, so I'm definitely not going to be hammering on top of my my cutting table and leaving chunks taken out with my hole punches. Um, One of the other reasons you would be putting holes in things, if you're not riveting it together, then you might be stitching it together, which also is going to require you to put some holes in things. The most traditional way to do that, and probably the most structurally sound way, would be to make your hole with something called an awl. The major difference with the awl is that when it makes a hole, it's actually not removing any material. It's basically just spreading the material open. You can barely even see the hole on the other side. So when you put your needle and thread through there, it's pretty hard to force it through, but by the time you've pulled it through, that thread is basically the exact same size as the hole. And especially after it flexes a little bit and that hole tends to shrink back down, it's going to pinch that thread. And so you've got a very, very tight seal there between the thread and the leather. It's especially important if you're making like canteens or something that's supposed to be semi-waterproof. Canteens, the old leather bladder style canteens, were basically stitched up with an awl and then waxed on the outside, and makes them more or less waterproof, enough that they can hold a drink or what have you. If you're planning on stitching, but you're not trying to do something watertight, and you're going to be putting in a lot of stitches, you probably don't want to force an awl through there over and over and over, and then force a needle through over and over and over. So one of the easier things you can do is get yourself a Dremel tool with just a little tiny drill bit on it, and you can lay yourself out some marked holes, and just easy as it can be, just press your drill bit through in each spot, and you've made yourself a quick and easy stitch line. Now this does remove leather just like the punches do, but if you're stitching together a garment or a belt or a bag or something, then this is perfectly a small enough hole to where it doesn't reduce the structural integrity of the piece. You don't want to put your stitches so close together like a sewing machine, because you're making a perforated line that you could just basically tear out. But as long as you've spaced them pretty well, then drilling them out is a perfectly acceptable way to do it. Another handy thing about the Dremel tools, you can just change this chuck out. And while you want to use a real tiny drill bit if you're putting in stitching holes, you want to use a much larger one if you're trying to put in rivet holes. The largest chuck that a Dremel tool will take is a chuck for a 1/8 inch bit, and a 1/8 inch bit is exactly the size of a rivet shaft. So pretty convenient way it worked out there. But the same way that you can float around the striking hole punch, you can use the Dremel tool to anywhere in the workpiece, even if it's out in the middle of a big sheet. Just put you a hole ready to be riveted through. Also, just like the aforementioned striking hole punch, you can actually get stitch setting hole punches that are basically the same principle. They're just spikes set up in a row. This one is a 6 spike, so if you've got a long plane that you're going to line up a bunch of stitch holes for, in the same way that I was walking that Dremel tool down, you can line your multi-punch down, drive it through, and you've got yourself a nice little stitch line there. These come in all sorts of different counts as well, so if you got to the end and 6 is too many, you can just take that piece off and switch it out for a smaller one, anywhere 1 or 2, however many you need to get to the end of it. So I hope this was helpful. If you'd like to see more videos walking you through some of the basics of leatherwork, then be sure to like and subscribe. And we've got a couple more videos in Leatherworking 101, and then we'll be getting into some more complex processes and some more expensive tools. So hopefully we'll see you there soon.